Well, hey,
You look a little different. It looks a little bit different today. I don't know. Andrew, it's you.
yeah, it took Mel's spot for today, so it is a little different.
Yeah. What happened to Mel?
That's a great question. I don't know too much about that, but I do know that I'm grateful for the opportunity to join in and be a part of the Thrive in EDU community live show today. So thanks for having me, and yeah, I'm excited.
Yeah, I'm just glad that I have you like like, well, not really speed dial because I guess kind of, but like I can reach you in so many different ways, and you actually don't ignore my messages. So I joke with you all the time that like one of these days you are going to just completely ignore my messages, but I'm glad that you didn't. So I'm excited today, and for anybody who is just tuning in for the first time, I'm Rachelle Dene Post, and I'm an educator, author, attorney, speaker, love education, love learning, love the Thrive in EDU community. And I am super excited about our guest that we have today. But before that, I want to have my co host for today introduce himself. So go ahead, Andrew.
Yeah, I'm Andrew Easton. By day, my 9 to 5 is I work as the digital learning coordinator for the Nebraska ESUCC, so kind of a statewide level. And then I also, for my own time in the classroom, really am pretty steeped in personalized learning practices. And so I have the good fortune to speak about that, write about it, and support schools in that work too. And always just appreciate the opportunity to hang out and learn and have fun in these formats. And so excited to be here, like I said earlier. So it's going to be fun.
It is going to be fun. So before we bring our guest up, I'm just going to ask you really quickly, because this is very important question. And for anybody who's watching, I would love to know the answer to this. It's a no stress question. Just throw that out there. But a lot of people have headed back to school or are heading back to school if they may even be in school today. I know I don't start back for 2 weeks, but self-care, super important, especially as we head into the new school year. I've seen a lot of posts on social media, people asking for ideas, giving ideas, suggestions like drinking water and taking a break and taking naps. So my question for you and anybody watching is, what did you do for self-care this weekend?
This weekend? Well, this weekend I actually had a really nice time yesterday. I got a chance to take the kiddos, and we went out to a friend's farm where they had this pond and this really sweet setup with this huge deck and a zip line and kayaks. And we honestly just spent the afternoon out there visiting and playing yard like lawn games, and it was terrific. So a little sunshine, a little fresh air, time with the family, and unplugging from things. Is always, I think, a great way to kind of get your mind right going into a busy week. So, about yourself? Did you do anything?
I did. I did a lot of walking outside, and my parents and I went to a local fair for my elementary school that's been around for years. And my mom and I, it was not a great experience at the time. I mean, we were playing bingo. I actually won. I won $7 and a cucumber because they always give me, I know it's random. And then this massive storm came, and we're all outside with it was very scary, but we played bingo, so it was good. So did take a break.
There were big storms here too. They had like 3 inches of rain that hit, and it was washing cars down the street. I saw something. It was terrifying. But
I know. So it was good. But at any rate, without taking any more time, because I want to spend all of the time that we have with our special guest, I'm going to bring our guest up today and have him introduce himself. But we have Al Kingsley joining us from, I can say, in the future, right? it's a little bit in the future. So have been so excited, have been following your work, seeing all of the great work that you do, catching up on your blogs, starting to read your book. So we are honored to have you join us here today and learn about everything that you can share with us. But first, if you wouldn't mind letting all of those that are watching, let us know a little bit about you and what you do.
Well, hi, folks. Thank you for having me on the show. Lovely to be here. I'm Al, as you can see, and I often refer to myself as a man of two halves. So half my time is spent developing technology solutions with net support, focusing and selling our solutions around the world. And the other half of my time is spent as chair of 2 multi-academy trusts, like school districts here in the east of the UK, and working in education, particularly for special educational needs provision, and working on kind of building and developing new schools within our region to meet demand. So a bit of both. And as some people might notice, I've got a bit of a passion with that fusion for the two, for the use of technology in education. And every now and again, I mention it.
Yeah, and I mean, all of us as educators are so busy doing all of the things, and people are always asking, and I know Andrew gets asked this a lot, I get asked this a lot, and I'm sure you do too as well, Al. It's like, how do you do so much? But you're a CEO, and you've written a book, and you blog, and you're on all of these different podcasts and everything. Clearly, you're passionate about education and ed tech, but how do you find the time to balance it all while still kind of making that time for like self-care and your, which can also be like your own learning? Because for me, self-care like is going to a conference, even though people say that doesn't count. But how do you find the time to kind of work in all of those different spaces?
I think I've probably got three strands I could answer that with. The first is an easy one, which was back 20 years ago in '99. For a few years, I was based out in the US and was still supporting the UK business. So I got used to getting up nice and early because of that being in the future, 5 hours ahead, so that I could support and work and interact with the UK team before the US operation started. And I've continued that when I came back to the UK. So I'm a very much an early riser, and I don't need that many hours sleep. I think the second one is I'm blessed to do something that I really enjoy. And I'm inquisitive by nature and very much an advocate for lifelong learning. And I do think if you're in a fortunate position to really enjoy what you do and you're intrigued by it, then actually it goes slightly away from being work to being a hobby and an interest and a passion all at the same time. And it makes it easier. And then the third thing, which is a lesson I think I developed with age rather than from the get-go, which is it's okay to admit you don't know everything. And actually, if you employ really good people who work with you and you trust them to get on and do things, you've got a much better success of actually following your passions and discovering new things. So having a good team of people around you that you trust is kind of key to that.
I love, and I typed that in through Melody's channel, so that's all good. But I love that you said that it's okay to admit that you don't know everything, because I think that we find especially as educators, that we have to be the experts in everything. And there's that hesitancy when looking at ed tech, for example. I teach Spanish, I teach a STEAM course, 8th graders on all different topics. Digital citizenship is one of the most important. Like, how do you actually write an email to your teacher? Like, not, hey, where's my whatever, there's a right way and a wrong way, but also building their skills online. And sometimes, when we get into things like emerging technologies, there is a hesitancy, like I said, for some teachers to say, well, I don't know enough about that, or I'm not a computer science teacher, so I can't do anything with like coding or any of those topics, for example. But it is uncomfortable to admit that you don't know. But I think that is such a great learning opportunity for our students to see, like, yeah, it's okay to not know the answers, because that's when we reach out to others to get support, to find help, or we reinforce like the right way to go through and process information online. And I know that was a lot there, but the reason I kind of delved into the whole online thing is because recently you had a guest blog post that you shared with me about staying safe online. So tying it all together, but I love so many of those points that you made, but the one that stuck with me the most is the not knowing everything. How about you, Andrew?
Yeah, I would agree with you. And I really like that you capitalized on that point there, Rachelle, as far as that it is a great opportunity for us to model that process for learners. And I think they need to see that and to understand that that's the mindset you have to be in when you approach learning, or and that inquisitiveness that comes with that too, of trying to quench a curiosity, maybe is the way I'd want to say it. So yeah, thanks for sharing that. I know I'd be curious to know a little bit more too about some of the work that you have done in your recent book.
Well, I think there's, just building on that last point, I think that's actually one of the strands where business can learn from the education space. I often reflect on the fact that educators are more reflective in terms of their practice, and that aligns in terms of professional development as well. And I think sometimes in business, there's an expectation that if you're good, it means you don't need to ask for help or support. And actually developing those skills is a reassuring sign of your co-workers and the staff you employ. And I think giving young people the message that actually nobody knows all the answers to anything, and actually the world's moving so quick, there's more things happening than you can ever consume, is actually kind of gives everyone a pass to just be honest and say, look, what do you think? Help. And I think that's a really important strand. And I suppose following that theme, and you touched on my book, thank you. Part of the catalyst was I've reached that age where I sometimes mentioned that I thought if I didn't write it down, I might forget it all. So it was a good catalyst to crack on from that point of view. But again, I think it's about breaking down some of the barriers. Often when the word technology and particularly EdTech is mentioned, some get really excited and go, hallelujah, I've been talking about this for 20 years and nobody really is listening. But also a lot of people just kind of deer in the headlights, gaze, oh, that's for the techies, that's not for me. Don't tell me anymore, not interested, way too complicated. And of course, like most things, in fact, what should be everything that happens in a school, the use of technology in education should be everyone's business, and everybody should have a voice to say, I agree or I disagree, or more importantly, to ask the questions. Why do we need to do that? What's its purpose? What's the impact likely to be? And so on. And so I wanted to kind of take a lot of the technical aspects away and just have a slightly long conversation in a book that talked through educational technology, where it's come, what it's about, the questions you should be asking and reflecting on. And I think it's really important to stress it's about highlighting the questions to ask. I'm a really strong believer that no two schools are the same. In fact, no two classes and cohorts are the same. And one of the things that we need to kind of recognize in the same way as we close the classroom door and we trust the teacher to do the best and engage the right ways to get the most out of their children, we should be doing the same with technology. And yet actually the last 18 months, we almost flipped to the let's send a message of we don't trust you in a very prescriptive way of how we should or shouldn't deliver online learning. And that doesn't play to the nuances and the strengths of each learner and teacher, where they are on their own digital journey. So the book is very much about actually making it clear that EdTech is everyone's business, highlighting some of the great successes. Again, back to that previous point, holding a hand up on the fact that actually mistakes are okay. I often refer to mistakes as stepping stones to success. And I've made plenty of stepping stones along my career, so I'm happy to hold my hand up, but I feel I'm slightly wiser for the experience. So it's always good to share that. And I think there are so many great resources out there. Lots of people in the education space have shared some great ideas and best practice on effective use of EdTech, whether it's in terms of the pedagogy in classroom or whether it's well-being or improving communication. I wanted to kind of bring it together so there was a resource that would kind of give everybody a starter for 10 on all those strands, as well as some signposts of where to go. And because nobody can know it all, again, looping back to our previous point, I wanted to also include a voices aligned, which is the voices of many others that I trust and respect in the education space, so that rather than just one person's perspective, it's from a broader perspective. And actually that collegiate approach is what we should be doing in schools when we're thinking about how we use our technology. We should be starting by getting the voices of teachers and students at the heart, and then thinking about how it connects with our schools' priorities, and thinking about accessibility and whether it's accessible to all the students, and thinking about data protection, and making sure that all those voices are part of it, so that we're not being dragged along on a journey, but we're actually doing something that we've all stakeholders in.
Oh yes, I didn't want to interrupt you, Andrew. So a couple things, like I'm listening to you, and I held up your book before. Like I had just gotten your book recently, and I have not read all of it yet, but I was looking through. I love to look at the table of contents and then kind of flip through it, and a couple of things stuck out initially, just in the flipping through. One, the voices aligned piece that caught my attention because it's something that in the books that I've written, like it's not just about my story. Like I like to get the stories and hear about the experiences of other people, because we're all so different, obviously. And having those other voices is really important, because if you just talk about your experience, and here you are, CEO of a company, people might think, wow, Elle knows everything. And I think Elle knows, I mean, like you said, like not everybody, we don't all know everything. There's always something to learn. And in that case, like somebody might be hesitant to read a book written by somebody who's, like has all of this experience, whether it's you or somebody else. But whenever you read and you see these other stories and experiences of like somebody who says, yeah, I had no idea what an LMS was. I just throw that example out there. And you see, like, you're not the only one. Like, we're all learning. Tech is constantly changing. Education is constantly changing. So the voices aligned definitely struck me. I did read through some of those. I also really appreciated that you had like a glossary towards the front that explains some common terms, like I'll throw out the LMS as an example, digital literacy, you had clicker. I'm trying to think of other ones you had in there, because a lot of times there are assumptions that people know what those words are. I know for me, PBL, I was like, oh yeah, I'm doing project-based learning. I wasn't. Somebody said app smash one time. I'm like, what's that? And they said, well, you said you're doing this and this. And I went, yeah. And they went, well, that's app smash. I went, okay. But then the other thing that I really like, so there's three, I mean, there's a lot more to it, but there's three. The third thing is that you go in and you explain things like TPAC and what that is, because people will often, especially students who are going through different courses now, they're reading about SAMR and TPAC and all of these different frameworks. And there's not often, even in books, there's not often an explanation of what they are and why it's important to know what those are. So as I flip through your secret EdTech diary, those were some of the things that stuck out right away. And
I kind of
also,
cheated a little bit on those as well. Just sorry if I cut across you, but
no.
the SAMR was a good example where I think lots of teachers will have come across it within the classroom setting, pedagogy-wise. But I kind of wanted to cheat for the purpose of what I was trying to express. And in the mindset of EdTech exists across the whole school infrastructure. It's not just what happens within the walls of the classroom, but we've learned about how we can use it for communication and well-being and improving parental engagement and other aspects. I kind of wanted to take the example of SAMR that we think of in terms of pedagogy and actually then stretch it and say, well, the way we've delivered, online evenings with parents to assess, to update on children's progress. Well, we are kind of using the SAMR model, and we've changed from a face-to-face to using technology, but we've added some extra controls and value in terms of time management, and staff could be at home, which affects well-being. And so if we start thinking about some of the things that we perhaps in some cases have taken for granted within the classroom setting and apply it a bit broader, I think there's some real benefits there, particularly as, improving communication, I think has been a really important strand we've learned skills from over the last 18 months.
Yeah, and I loved the SAMR with the parents' evenings, like your analogy in that way. And I was sitting on my deck, like we were talking before we went live, like the mornings where I get up and I take the book out, which it's your book, reading the coffee, and I was reading your SAMR analogy about the school parents' evenings. And then my mind started to go to like faculty meetings and all of these other things that you could apply that to. So thank you for sharing that. Andrew, I know that I kind of interrupted you before, so I'm going to toss it over to you.
No, you're fine. I was thinking of asking, I guess, a moment ago when you were sharing about the questions, that are we asking the right questions? And I do so appreciate that your perspective as far as understanding or communicating, I guess, that each place is its own individual entity, right? Like a district or even, I think, down to the building level, and given that flexibility for them to kind of ask and answer these questions authentically to who they are and the people that culture represents. So could you give us an example of one of the questions from your book that you would suggest that people ask, right? Like, what are some of those right questions?
I mean, it's very broad. If we sort of drill down into the high level, I mean, it's part of when we think about creating a digital strategy. The question is, what are the current challenges? Why are we looking at changing the way we do things? Why are we looking at this solution? How are we actually going to measure it in terms of impact and evidence? There's the why in terms of capacity. Why are we doing all these things now? Because often there's a mindset which is, okay, we've got a green light to reflect and add to our digital ecosystem. And suddenly then we've got this mindset that, well, the more we've got than somebody else, that means we're doing it better, right? Well, no. It's not about who's got the most. It's about who's using what they've got most effectively. So what some of the questions are about, what have we already got and how is it being used? Because again, sometimes we talk about looking at adding, and developing a digital strategy, and the mindset is, so what are we going to go out and buy? Well, the first question is, how do we know what we've got is being used effectively? Could we redeploy it elsewhere? Is it the training, the professional development that means that teachers don't have confidence using this technology in the classroom? Is it that it doesn't have the right apps on board? Have we hopefully learned some lessons after the last 18 months, which has empowered our teachers to take risks? And by risks, I mean measured risks, trying stuff, having a go with different apps or different ways of utilizing tech in the classroom, as long as they can measure whether it's having an impact and it benefits engagement with their students. So there's lots of things about reflecting on what we've got and what we've done well, because, I'd argue, like in everything in life, it's easy to make decisions when you have more confidence. And confidence comes from being able to measure things in lots of different ways. So if I know that our existing, group of Chromebooks that we introduced 2 years ago are being used 4 lessons out of 5 every day, and they've got up-to-date applications and students are engaging with them and we've got positive feedback, I'm much more likely to be confident about getting more of those for elsewhere within the school than I would be if somebody says, well, I don't know. I've no idea whether they're used, whether they're switched on, whether they're still in the cupboard or not. And if we don't know how confident staff are with the core apps, whether we're a Google or a Microsoft, infrastructure, then the idea of adding on top kind of seems slightly pointless. And so one of the things I tried to allude to in terms of those questions, it kind of linked back to some of the lessons learned from EdTech over the last, goodness knows how many years, is often we talk about projects success or failure and we put the label on it as the technology. iPad project fail, Chromebook project fail. But actually, more often than not, it wasn't the technology, it was the implementation. Either we spent all the money on the kit and nothing on professional development, or we set expectations that were completely unrealistic. So lots of the questions are about, I suppose they come under the banner of challenge, but let's be honest, if we all ask the questions that we think are, well, give me the reasons why we're doing this. What are we hoping to achieve? How are we going to measure whether we've achieved that? What timescale are we putting on this, or brackets, do we even need a timescale? What are our priorities? So let's try 1 or 2 things first. Then everybody's on board with expectations. And if it's successful, you've got the evidence to have confidence to build on it. And I think that's much better than what often happens when a project starts, which is a small subset of people have a conversation, decide on something, and then there's a memo to the workforce that says, good news, starting next term, we're using product X. Well, why are we using that? What was wrong with the old one? And because nobody communicated, because actually this can do A, B, and C that you don't know about, and by the way, you haven't had training yet, but don't worry, you will, and so on and so on. The whole positive that should be a yes, we're moving forwards becomes a, oh my goodness, how are we going to cope with it? I'm hoping that might resonate.
I'm giggling because I know exactly the experience that you're referencing there, and also
Too well.
Yes, and understand too just how valuable it is to. What I heard there was to start with your why. And make sure you're asking those questions, and then just act with intentionality and communicate well, right? I mean, those being some of the themes across the terrific question set that you just threw out there. So.
I think there's also strength of leadership that goes in there, and I always challenge that, because often those at the top of the tree within any organization perhaps aren't always the ones that are most up to date with the latest technology, because they won't have the reference point from their own classroom practice, for example. And so the strength of leadership comes in actually saying, rather than the senior team getting together and making a decision, we're going to empower some of those actually of the workforce that are actually in the classroom and maybe quite inexperienced to actually provide their insights in terms of how technology can or can't or is or isn't being effectively used. And that strength of leadership comes in recognizing that sometimes you're not the best place to make those kind of decisions.
Right. That's an excellent point. I'm just like nodding my head. Yes, everything you're saying. Absolutely. Like, been through that. Know it's going to happen again. Great tips, and love comments that are coming in. Mel says it resonates. I know that it definitely resonates with a lot of people, especially if they're already, like today or even last week. I know a lot of educators, actually even 2 weeks ago, my friends in Nashville, big surprise, friends in Nashville, right, Andrew? They were headed back on, I think it was the last Monday in July. They were headed back for like 4 days of administrative PD kind of days. And then the following Monday, last Monday, was their first day with students. And I just thought, oh my goodness, like 4 days of the PD, and just wondering, even just for my own, for the upcoming school year, or for all teachers, what type of PD is going to be offered, what opportunities are going to exist for bringing ed tech in, or different methods. Is it going to be like, yeah, we used this thing last year and hey, now we're switching to this? But what Andrew said too, it's like, it is so important. It's always the why, right? It always comes down to like, why. And that is something I try to share with my students when I bring in yet another digital tool, or change something up in the classroom, or start to do an activity, then decide, you know what, that's not a great idea. And like expressing that why, so that we are clear on the purpose. And it's not just because somebody said this is the best app or tool or whatever, equipment thing that you can get for your classroom ever, because it might be for you, but it may be the complete opposite for me and my students in my classroom, or it might not meet my comfort level. So it always needs to come back to that why. So great advice. And we are starting to kind of wind down our time. It goes so fast. So we can keep on talking, or we can do a little bit of games and have some fun. I'm leaving it up to both of you.
Al, you're the guest.
I'm pointing in your direction.
Hey, this way. I got to go this way.
We can do a game. I'm sure we can do a game, and we can figure a way to mention EdTech along the way.
Yes.
All right.
And I'll tell you this, Al, we would love to have you come back and we can continue the conversation whenever your schedule allows. We will follow up with you to have you come back and join us, because a couple of months down the road and see, how are things going? What have we seen happen in education? Because as we enter this new school year, who knows, right? Don't know what's yet to come. But before we play our game that Andrew's going to lead, I want to know, for anybody watching and for Al and Andrew, do you know what today's special celebration is according to my paper box subscription?
Coffee day?
That'd be great, because I could use another cup. Mine's gone. Nope. I'll give you a hint. You ready?
Is it Book Lovers Day?
It's Book Lovers Day. Yes, Book Lovers Day. So in honor of Book Lovers Day, everybody watching should get a copy of Al's new book right here as you see it. And the link is available in the comments. So with that being said, Andrew, it is time for games.
All right.
So says games.
Yeah, so we'll play something that is like a Zoom scavenger hunt, but we're doing this here in StreamYard, obviously. And so I'm going to challenge the two of you. What I'll do is give you an item to find. And so the first to kind of reach around your peripheral or to stand up and go across the room to get this item, and then you can show it to us. That would be 1 point. So we'll play best of three, just because we're on a short time frame here. So First thing up, can you find something that is blue? All right. What do we have? Blue book and a blue crab pen thing.
It's a blue crab pen. Also from the subscription box.
Oh, wow. Well, let's make.
What do you have, Al?
For that here.
Well, I've gone rather boring. I've gone for a blue book. It's all about behavior management and change. So not quite so exciting. I think the crab was cool, but this is a good book as well, if anyone wants to see that.
But that's perfect, because it's Book Lovers Day. So you almost get like bonus points on that one.
All right. Next one up. Something with an animal on it.
Oh, my goodness.
Oh, wait.
There it is. I'm gonna steal your stuff.
I'm losing badly on this game, aren't I?
Al, you know what?
All right.
Look at that.
Oh, there it is.
Is that Sylvia's sketch notebook? Yep.
It certainly is.
I knew it. That's how
I'm a big fan of Sylvia Duckworth. She's got some brilliant sketches. So
gave me some confidence to teach my students how to sketch note, even though I'm not the best artist. But I will say, Al, what you have to know is that there's a whole mess going on over here. So it's not surprising that I have a lot of, things hanging around. All right, Andrew, I think we need to do like two more, because this is a lot of fun.
All right. So can we track down something that is not a drink, but food, or picture of food?
Oh
my goodness.
Wait.
Hey, there you go. Winner, chocolate.
Oh, I was
Very
close.
Nice.
Hey, you know what?
Suckers on that one. Okay.
This is also
unfortunately just for evidence that's
Is it empty?
That's my Christmas treat, and you can tell how organized I've been since, because it's still sitting on the shelf.
And mine was notebook paper with lollipops.
Lollipops on
again
nice.
From the paper subscription box. Very helpful.
Nice job on the sweets. Well, should we do one more?
Yeah, I think so. If Al, you good with another one?
I'm hoping, as long as it's not something too exotic that's going to require me to jump in the car.
Yeah.
Something with music related. Could be an instrument, could be an album, could be notes.
Wait, something that's
Hey,
music
there you
related.
go. That was creative.
Can I just point to my piano over there?
I think that works too, Rachelle. I think you both get one on that.
Or the guitar in the background? I don't know.
Yep,
I'm like
yep.
looking at my desk, like what's music related? Or I could have just done my
terrific.
headset, right? Because I listen to music. Oh wow. Oh my gosh.
Well played, everybody. I think
funny.
that was fun. That was good.
All right. So Al, thank you for joining us in this conversation and Andrew's fun game. I actually do like that game. We're gonna have to that's gonna be a keeper. But to close out, we always like to have like some advice or words of motivation, a quote or anything that you would like to share. So is there any advice, whether it's the best advice or not, but any advice that you could offer for teachers who are starting a new school year?
Well, I'm going to probably just follow the theme that we discussed earlier, which is a reminder to everybody going back in the new year. There'll be loads of things that are either unfamiliar or present challenges. And no matter what you think, everybody else will be thinking the same way as you. So have confidence in the fact that everybody is going to need a bit of support and everybody's going to have questions that they can't answer. So I think that approach, which educators have done so well the last 18 years, which is carry on providing that support to peers, and don't feel because you don't know everything that you're the only one, is probably the most important thing to remind each other.
That is great advice. Oh, Mel says, I hope I get to meet you soon, Al.
You too, Mel.
Andrew, anything to add?
No, I just want to wish everybody a great start to your school year, and just go in, looking to grow in an open mindset. And I think after navigating everything educators have gone through the last 18 months, that we are ready and prepared for whatever life might throw at us, and probably as best equipped as we've ever been, I think, to do that, both from a technology standpoint, but also self-care and resiliency, risk-taking. We're ready for 21-22.
We are. And I have nothing more to add beyond what both of you said, except I will segue from what Andrew said about the self-care. And that is important. So find ways, be intentional about taking breaks in your day. And hey, if that means joining us on Mondays and Fridays or catching the replays of our other episodes, we would love that. And we would love to have you join our Thrive and EDU community. So Al, thank you again for joining us today. Great to connect with you face to face here and have some fun and learn from you. And Andrew, as always, thank you for joining in and helping and being my co-host today. So thanks to everybody who joined in. We will see you later on this week on Friday. Have a fantastic Monday, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.